Forget stealth. These subs hit like battleships and move like destroyers. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, as always, Normal Guy of the North, and today we're surfacing with a deep dive, yes, pun intended, into the Soviet submarine line in World of Warships. This line offers a radically different playstyle compared to, say, the German or American or even the British line of submarines. If you're a fan of speed, stealth, and delivering brutal torpedo salvos with mid to long range, this line might just be for you. Let's break down what makes this steel beast so deadly and how to use them effectively. Here we go. So let's start with the basics. Soviet submarines in World of Warships are not your typical underwater predators. Their core strength lies in their surface performance. They're fast, agile, and built for delivering high damage, unguided torpedo strikes from afar. Think of them less like sneaky sharks and more like naval ambush predators that strike hard, then reposition fast. Unlike other subs that focus heavily on, say, stealthy homing torpedoes, the Soviet boats rely on unguided torpedoes with long range and high alpha damage. Their homing torpedoes, short range, low damage, I can assure you, you will not be leaning on them very much. Instead, the main armament is spread of a powerful unguided torpedoes that can devastate unsuspecting targets. On the surface, these subs move very fast, some faster than actual destroyers. They've got enhanced acceleration as well, meaning they can reposition quickly, scout aggressively, or escape danger when need to. But they have a trade-off. Submerged performance is weak, but not at periscope depth, same as being at the surface. They dive slow, move slower underwater, and their dive capacity, well, it isn't great. This means you're not ideal for prolonged underwater duels with enemy subs. So what do they bring to those fights? Well, how about a long-range submarine surveillance consumable? That's right. These boats can help detect enemy subs from a distance, making them excellent support units in sub-on-sub engagements to have your team help you sink the enemy sub. Okay, let's look at the line starter, the Tier 6 Soviet submarine Sierra 1, or affectionately known as S1. This is the perfect intro into the playstyle you'll see in the rest of the tech tree. The S1 has a surface speed of 31 knots, which puts it in the same ballpark as many destroyers at Tier 6. It's armed with 4 bow torpedo tubes and 2 at the stern, giving it decent flexibility for both approaches and even disengagements. Its torpedo options include the 53-36 low-damage homing torpedo with a 7-kilometer range, and the 53-36 Mike Zulu, a more powerful unguided torpedo with 13,600 alpha damage and 11-kilometer range. Guess which one you want to use most of the time? That's right, the big boomers, or the boom boom stick. You have to be pretty old to get that reference. Dive capacity sits at 180 units, not great, and submerged speed is only 15 knots, which limits your time underwater. It's best to stay surface when possible, using terrain and line of sight to avoid detection. The S1 also carries a 100mm or a 120mm based on the bug in the game, because they all say that and it's wrong. We don't know which one it is, and Wargaming hasn't fixed it yet. Deck gun, giving you some emergency damage capabilities when surfaced, though don't rely on it. But I do with the K1, she has 2, and I do it all the time. I'll get to that a bit later. Moving up to the Tier 8, we have the L-20, or Lima 20. This boat is part of the final series of the L-class, Lima class, used by the Soviets in World War II. In World of Warship, it plays like an upgraded S1, with more firepower and a slightly beefier toolkit. Surface speed does drop a bit to 28 knots, but it gains more tubes. 6 tubes at the bow and 2 at the stern. More tubes? Well, equals more torps in the water. Its dive capacity is slightly better than 210 units or 210 seconds for a unit, but submerged performance is still sluggish at just 14 knots. Now, for torps, let's see what you've got. You've got the 53-38 uniform, homing torpedo at 5,167 damage and a range of 9 kilometers. And of course, the unguided ones are 53-38 uniform Mike Zulu, unguided torps, a massive 15,500 alpha damage with 11-kilometer strike. And again, long-range, unguided surface ambushes are your best strategy. The L-20 keeps the 120 or 120mm deck gun. We're not so sure what it is. But like the S-1, it's mainly for show or desperation plays. It gives you options if you're forced to surface to shoot back at the enemy. Where this sub shines is in the ability to kite and rotate quickly across the map to harass broadside targets and support key flanks. At the top of the line is the K1 or Kilo 1 at Tier 10, and this submarine is a beast. Historically, this was a large Soviet sub designed for mine-laying and long-range operations alongside surface fleets. In the game, it plays like a high-speed torpedo cruiser with a massive payload. It boasts a blistering 37 knots surface speed and periscope, one of the fastest in the game for submarines. It's loaded with 10 torpedo tubes, 6 forward, 4 aft. That's a lot of fish to throw at unsuspecting cruisers and battleships. The torpedo options are as follows. 53-38 uniform, again only 5,167 damage and a range of 9 kilometers. That's the homing ones. And of course you have the big boys, the 53-38 uniform Mike Zulu with 16,800 alpha damage and 11.5 kilometer range. Yes, that's right, nearly 17,000 damage per torp, and you can launch a wide spread. You are an absolute menace in this boat when positioned properly. Now, submerged speed is 16 knots. Dive capacity is 210 units or 210 seconds. So again, it's not made for prolonged underwater sneaking. It's made for hit and run tactics, repositioning, long-range harassment. The K1 also packs two 100mm or 120mm deck guns. But again, for most people, they're backup weapons at best. However, for me, and this is not for everybody, I use the K1 with the guns to sink destroyers. If I get caught, I will surface and shoot you. It is fantastic for that. I have seen where a I-56 with her SAP gun took out a Tier 10 Soviet gun destroyer at full health, and it won. I'm just saying, they're worthwhile. You can use them if you have to, but for those players, use them as a backup weapon, okay? So now that we've looked into each tier, let's talk strategy, shall we? To play Soviet subs effectively, you'll need to break free from the traditional sub mindset. Don't stay submerged too long. You'll just gimp your mobility and waste dive capacity. Instead, do these. Stay on the surface as much as possible. Use your speed and acceleration to stay mobile and unpredictable. Use terrain and islands to mask your approach or your retreats. You're fast enough to reposition quickly. Take advantage of that. Fire your long-range unguided torpedoes at targets you predict will hold steady course. Like battleships and pushing cruisers are perfect. Like we've never seen battleships just stay in one straight line and one straight speed. Use your submarine surveillance consumable to reveal enemy subs from a distance and help your destroyers win sub duels. That one's key. Only dive when you absolutely have to, like dodging a radar cruiser or repositioning safely. And for gosh sakes, please avoid prolonged 1v1 fights with other subs. Your poor underwater speed and limited dive time make you easy prey. Remember, Soviet subs aren't about constant stealth, they're about control, aerial denial, and predictive strikes. You're more of a fast skirmisher than a deep sea stalker. Now, before we move on, let's pause and compare the Soviet submarines to other major lines in World of Warships, because this really highlights what sets them apart. Let's start with the German submarines. These are probably the most aggressive underwater hunters in the game. They focus on long-range homing torpedoes, high underwater speeds, and stealthy approaches. German subs are designed for staying submerged longer, ambushing enemies with guided torpedoes, and dueling with other subs head-on. Their acoustic torpedoes hit hard and can be devastating, but they rely on you timing your pings just right. They're kind of a stealth sniper, dangerous if you let them line up the shot. Now, compare that to the American submarines, which are more balanced. They feature moderate homing torpedoes and a decent mix of submerge and surface capabilities. Their torpedoes do reload faster, and they have a solid concealment and maneuverability. They're a little bit easier to play for new subcaps because they're more forgiving. Think of them as a jack-of-all-trades submarines. They can dive, fight, reposition. Nothing flashy, but they do get the job done. Then we have the British submarines, which are very, very specialized. British subs rely heavily on constant sonar pinging, dealing damage over time with low-damage, fast-reloading torpedoes. They're persistent rather than explosive, more like a scalpel than a sledgehammer. British boats are for players who like to apply pressure, force repairs, and then strike again. They do well in team support roles, wearing down targets and keeping them spotted. And then you've got the Soviet line. The Soviet subs flip the script entirely. They say, forget stealth, forget pinging, I'm just going to smash you with all the raw torpedo damage from 10 kilometers away. They rely on unguided torpedoes, long range, and big alpha strikes. and they operate best on the surface, not submerged, using their speed and mobility like a fast destroyer. You're not that sneaky sub sneaking up on battleships. You're the sub that's already behind the enemy team, launching an 8 torpedo broadside while speeding off into the distance. So to recap, German underwater killers, long range ping, and acoustic damage. Americans, versatile, balanced mix of everything. British, persistent pingers, slow burn, pressure damage. Soviets, surface walls, high speed, high damage, unguided strikes. If a Kaba and a Petro had a love child, you'd probably have the Soviet subline. So, there you have it, a full breakdown of the Soviet submarine line in World of Warships. They're fast, they're deadly, and when played right, you can control the map like no other subs in the game. Now, if you're coming from the German or say the US subs, be prepared for a completely different experience. You have to think faster, strike smarter, and avoid overcommitting, especially overcommitting. But if you can master that, these boats will reward you with devastating results. Okay, let me know in the comments if you've been playing the Soviet sub since it got out of early access or during early access, and what's your favorite tier so far. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more content from yours truly, Normal Guy of the North. Until next time, Captains, as always, take care, stay safe, wish you all the best. Bye for now.